Okay, so after you've done your binding and your painting weights and all that good stuff, one of the things that we could work with is kind of putting the joints in here connected to a UI. So we can make a little quick user interface. I'm not going to make the whole thing, so I'll just show you how to do maybe one of these, and then you guys can do your own thing. Okay, so as in class, as we were working, we were able to kind of create something for like a smile and a frown. We could do something kind of quick, but I do want to keep this video a little bit shorter. So real quick, I will be using NURBS curves, and we are going to be using the whole set-driven key deal to create this. All right. So you can make this thing as large as you need to. This is kind of a smaller character, so these centimeters are very tiny. I could subdivide my grid or something like that in order to snap to grid, or I could just make something really large and then plan to scale it down as I work. Okay. So first off, I think I'll just kind of work with. Well, I don't know if this is going to be too great, so let me see if I can do my grid settings. I will go up here to the top where I have display, grid, option box. And I have subdivisions every, 5. You'll see this. I don't have a color coding system, so you'll see that here in a little bit. Without creating, I really don't want to go over all this, but I'll just, kind of add some more grid lines every some odd units. We have subdivisions per section here. Like if we had feet, for instance, we could do the subdivisions into inches and all that good stuff, and then we could, break those down into even more subdivisions that would give us, half an inch and all that good stuff. So that's a pretty good way of working. And what I'll do here is I'll just, increase my subdivisions. So let's say I do something like 12, 10 or 12. When I do apply, you see how it's added some more subdivisions when it's come to it. If you do that and then it gets to be a little crazy, you could always go up to edit down to reset settings, and that'll bring you back down this way. Okay, so I can make a UI pretty simple by just kind of adding in something like that. There's 20. I think I can add a number in here that's not there because I can only drag up to 20. So if I did 30 and hit apply, there we go. Okay, so I could really do something like that. Let's see what 40 will give us. And I'll hit apply. I'm liking that. That's pretty good. And I'm just going to go 50. Why not? All right. Yes, so I'm okay with this. And I'm going to hit close here. And I can work with the grid units. So what I'll do is I'll just come to the side here and work alongside the character. I mean, you could really put this thing anywhere, but I don't want it too far away just at the moment for learning purposes. Okay. As for animating purposes, you're just going to put it where it makes sense. And then you want this thing to move and hide and lock and hide the things that you do not want the animator to work with. And then what we're going to end up doing is we're going to parent it to the joint here at the base of the head so that it moves along with the head, and that is always there. I mean, you really could set it up however you are instructed to. So we're not going to worry about that. We're just going to worry about creating it. You know all the tools to really get that other part across. So what I'll do is I'll go up to the top, create, down to curve tools. I'll do EP curve tool option box. And the first thing that I'm going to make sure is that I have this to linear. So I want this set to linear for the settings. That's pretty good. So I'll close this. Now I'm going to snap to grid. If you forget the snapping functions, we do have X for snap to grid. So you see my cursor up here. When I hit X, or hold down X, I should say, then it's set to snap to grid. When I release X, it's not going to snap to grid. Okay. Now this is just an inverse as well. So let's say that I had this selected, snap to grid, and I'm snapping to grid down here. If I hold down X, oh, actually it looks like it doesn't do it in 2018. That's okay. It works. It's good. But if you're working in an earlier version of Maya, if I had this thing selected and I held down X, then that would be unselected. So basically I'd be snapping when this thing is selected, and then when I hold down X, it would deactivate it, basically. Do an inverse. So I'll just hold down X when I want to snap to grid, and I'll just make a little box here. Maybe something like this. I'm not too worried about the size. I could always make it larger. Really, this is just a bounding box for visual purposes. It really serves no purpose otherwise. Name it right away. So always name your stuff. We can call this faceUI. faceUI box or something. I don't know, just something that makes sense. Not always the greatest at naming, so that'll work for me at the moment. And I mean, if you needed more subdivisions here, you could just go back to your grid options and do so. Okay, I'm just going to work with what I have here. So let's get with the other portions here that I need to create. I'm going to go ahead and activate my tool, which is right here. I can hit the Y key if I'd like. Y would activate this tool since it's the last tool that I used. And that is, again, the Create Curves EP Curve tool, right? It's going to be based off my linear settings. So I will go ahead and hold down X. Do I have it activated here? So mine is being weird. So I'll just come in here. Oh, that's because I'm holding D. There we go. Much better. And I'll hit enter. It's pretty good. And that is just going to be for the slider. So let's say that it's going to be, let's just stick with the smile and frown type of deal. I will do smile, frown, slider. Now I don't know if that's a good name, but it makes sense to me at the moment, so I'll go with that. For the actual controller, I'm going to draw that thing out, so I'll hit Y this time on my keyboard to activate my Create Curve EP Curve tool right there. Hold down X and create this. And that looks amazing. So let's work with that as is, and I will give it a different name. Maybe smile, frown, controller. Okay, that's pretty good so far. And I'll take all of these, and just real quick, I'll take this one, and I will just do modify center pivot, modify freeze transformations, just in case I have anything going on in here, and edit delete by type history. Okay. If I want to make my custom buttons, I could go to my custom shelf here, and these were just some of the previous ones that I had going on here. But I will go up to anything that I want to do that I'm going to do frequently, like for instance, modify center pivot. I'll hover over center pivot, hold down Shift along with Control. So Shift and Control, and click it. Nothing seems to happen except the fact that if I click on here, there's my center pivot right there. So just to work with these, oops, I don't want to do that part here, sorry. I could get rid of any of these. I could right click and go down to delete, delete, right click and delete. Okay, so I would be able to click that, and that would center the pivot. Anytime I click one of these buttons, I'm gonna leave the other one just because I just want that there. But for learning purposes, there's center pivot. Then I'll go to edit, down to delete by type, history. Hold down Control and Shift and click that with my left mouse button. And there we go. We have this awesome little icon. We could load our own icons if we want. So if you want to get kind of crazy with it, you can load your own icons in and customize this shelf. But I'm trying to be kind of quick here, so there's that. And also, so center pivot, history, freeze transformations. That was the other. So modify down to freeze transformations. Again, I'll hold Control and Shift, left mouse button, click that. Okay, so there we go. And then I can do a lot of these just by clicking it. So I could select this guy, and instead of going to my menus, I click that to freeze transformations, click that to delete history, and click that to center the pivot point. Okay, so that's pretty good. Now over here, I will select this one. I will do all the same things. Click, click, click. Same here. Click, click, click. So the history is just for a good measure. I mean, I have information down here a lot of the time, and I don't always need it, so I've gotten rid of that part, and it's working out for me pretty well, because then I don't have leftover information that might kind of mess with the stuff that we're doing. We just have a nice clean scene. We do not need any history from the build, so creating these curves, I don't need that history in here. It could just really, you know, take up memory for one, and possibly throw something else off that I really don't need. So in this case, this is what I need. Okay. So we'll deal with some of the other parts here in a second, but let's go ahead and make the text. So I'm just kind of zooming out because I already know that Maya's going to give me this huge text over here. I'm going to go to Create, and I'm going to go down to Type. And I have this awesome type. I didn't go out far enough, but that's because this model is super tiny and I did not scale it up. Okay. So the beginning, when you first saw those really big units that I had, those are set to the default in Maya, which is centimeters. So This is a very, very tiny Punisher. More like an Ant-Man, I guess. Punisher. So I'll go up to type here, and I want to change the 3D type name to smile. I'll hit enter because I want this other one to be below. And frown. And you see that we have that there. Now by default, this is now geometry that's down here at the bottom. So I have type mesh. That's the smile frown. It's already created for us, which is a little bit different from earlier versions of Maya, which is pretty good. I can get down with it because under geometry we have all the same old options, because usually we had curves and then we would tell it to do like a bevel plus or something like that. And what we have here now is that we kind of have the reverse. So I have straight up geometry with extrusions and whatnot. And just to show you, I'll come over here and I'll pop out. And there we go. Automatic extrusions, where you guys can play with those settings. And this isn't really about that. What I want to do is just click on this create curves from type. So it's going to create the curves, the NURBS curves that I need for this UI that I'm working with. In this case, I can take the geometry that was just created, select it in my outliner, and hit delete. And it's gone. Now the curves lie in here. Okay, so I'm not too worried about that. Again, we would name these. So what I can do is I can come over here in any of these. I'll just pop into the front and go like this. And it'll select all my curves for smile. With those selected, I can go up to the top here. And this is usually hidden, so you would have to click this to unhide this. And then there's this icon here. You drop down and say, I want to rename these things. Okay. Since I've selected all of these, it's kind of like shift clicking or control clicking in here. That way we skip all these, but we only select the curves we need. And I am able to rename these right up here. So let's say that I have smile, and this is just going to be the curves. And let's say that I'm happy with that name because I don't really know what to call it at the moment. I'm going to hit enter, and I have smile curves right there. So I know exactly what those are. Okay. The other part is that I can take these ones, shift select this last one. That way I can just move everything around and whatnot by selecting this one. And I'm going to parent these all to this guy. So I could hit edit parent or just the P key. And now the S is going to control everything. The other part is that I have it down here. You see that there's all of these things following this one S. I'll hold down my middle mouse button and I'll drag it out here like that. And that should be pretty good. Smile curves. I don't want to the frown controller though. So what I will do is middle mouse click it, put it between these two, and drop it out. Now I have just smile curves, and yeah, that should be all of them. Boom. Pretty good. So I'll do the same thing here. I'll select all of these. And in here, I'll hold the control and click on the last one, which is my F. So you can see that in there. It's not selected until I control click it here. And I will hit the P key this time. And that has parented those ones in there. One thing I didn't do is name these. So these are all selected. I could even just do this in my viewport. It's much easier than control clicking these. And then I could tell this to be the frown curves. Okay. I'll take the main one, select that plus sign on the side, or the minus key, sorry, icon. Hold down my middle mouse button. I'll drag it out like that in between those two. Oh, and I had them all selected, so when they're all individually selected, it pulled them all out of both the group node here, which I can delete, so there's nothing in there. So I'll hit the delete key, and all of these now got also pulled out of being parented to the F. So here I can shift select the F and hit the P key again, and we have this awesome creation here. So I'll just drag these down, keep them kind of close together, and what I'll do is I'll select both of them, and I do need to scale them down, so I'll hit the R key. Just gonna make them smaller. Start coming into my scene here. place them closer. I'll hit F to frame it, and I will look in here and take this a bit down. That's almost fitting. Scale it down a little bit more. And that's okay for the moment. So let's say that we're happy with that. Just kind of do this whole bit. And this whole bit. And we don't really care where their pivot points are. It's not a huge deal. And that's good enough for at least the lesson. Okay. So we have a smile and a frown. Pretty simple. Pretty nice. The next thing is to decide how we can set this up. And you don't have to do a lot of these things in a specific order for this to work. But what we'll do is we'll just kind of take these. And again, you see I have information here that I do not need. So I'll just do this whole bit. Right? You may need to select all of them like that. That way they're acting as though they're individually selected. And then we can do that again. And then all of them should have their, certain settings, which are perfect. You can select them to see individually that they're zeroed out for rotation and translation, and the scale is set to 1. And there are no information at the bottom for the inputs. And that is golden. So this is pretty good. We want pretty much everything here except for that guy. And I could shift select this, and there's many ways that you could do this, but I want these all to be a child of this guy. So select this, right? And these. Shift select that one last, and I'll hit P to parent them. Okay, I don't know what this is saying. Let's see, no object matches name, smile curve 3. So what does that mean for us? Nothing, just getting some kind of weirdness. Turtle user interface, blah, blah, blah. Smile curve 3. Let's see what this is all about. It's giving me that error every time I have this selected. So let's see what's going on with smile curve 3. It's kind of a weird deal that I'm getting that. Shouldn't really hurt anything, but let's pull it out and see. I didn't want to parent that. I'm using my Wacom tablet, so sometimes it's a little hard to be accurate in dropping these outside of the scene. So yeah, so I don't know what that was all about, but I'll select the S, shift select this, and parent it, and now I'm not getting that error, so I don't really know what happened. Maya just didn't like something, and that's okay. As long as it's working now, we don't really care. So we'll take the win at this moment, and the things that we have to decide are, at this point, I could select all of these, and they're really just for visual purposes, but I'll just select those, and I may have to do these one at a time. I'll shift select these, and I'll shift select this guy. Okay, I could do the same thing with this one, and I'm going to take everything that I do not need, so I'll select all of these, and what the animator wouldn't need to do, they don't need translations on any of these except this one. Okay, just making sure that one's not selected right there in the center, because that one does need to slide up and down. For everything else, I right click and I'll go down to lock and hide selected. Okay, and now I can't scale or rotate any of these. Okay, and I'm okay with that because I don't need to even mess with those. So those are pretty good. They're just for visual purposes. Another thing that I was showing in class is that we could take these, and we have to do this part one at a time. So if I select the S and I hit Control A or click on my attribute editor, I can go to my smile curve itself and I can do overrides. So you can do this for your entire rig if you like. But I'm going to go down to, I believe it's display. And let's see, drawing overrides. There it is. Perfect. So I will enable them by clicking this icon. And I will go down specifically to the color here. So let's say that I just wanted to go to the next color. Nope, black's not going to show up too well. That's fine, whatever. It'll stand out a little bit more, but you'll see that this override, when I deselect it, it actually did to the whole thing. That's pretty good. That's because they're parented, I guess. In class, it didn't work quite that way. But again, this is Maya 2018.3, and in class, we're using 2018.2. So I will do the same thing down here, enable overrides, and maybe frown is going to be a little different color, so like that. All right. Strange. Let's just make that smile and frown like that. Oh, let's just do this then. Maybe a green. Okay. And if it's hard to see, I mean, you can just choose through colors. Like that might be a little gaudy and that hurts my eyes. So, you know, just choose something wisely. That would be obnoxious. So, you know, again, for the sake of the tutorial and whatnot, I'm just going to do something kind of quick. Those are pretty close, right? Yeah, whatever, that works. So I'm happy with that. Make peace with it. You could use any shapes you want, because really what you could do is you could template these out so they're not even selectable. And the way to do that is, you know, just select this, and then let's see if we can find it. It's been a little while since I've looked for it. Let's see here. Display. Template. So we're still under the same tab, under the display section. Template that thing out, and now I can't even select it, which is okay. I'm fine with that. It's going to follow this one anyway. Okay, so I'll select this F. Same thing, display, template. When I turn on template, now you don't have to worry about the animator selecting that. It's really just for them to see. The only bad thing is that my overrides are now, you know, not functional. So I do have this, but I don't have the cutesy little pink that I had down here and the maroon up here. So, I mean, I'm okay with it in this case. But we could work with things, and there are workarounds, but we don't really need to worry about that at the moment. Okay, so I'll take this one, I'll template it out as well. Might as well make this kind of hard to break. This is going to be selectable, so what I could do is I could, you know, change its color so it's not so uniform when it comes to this. And really, partly what you're seeing is that I have wireframe on shaded turned on right here, and it really, that's just shading wireframe on shaded. Okay. So when I have this deselected, I mean, I guess that's just the color of my curves. So I will go down to, for this one, since everything else is kind of this weird gray, and that blue is for most things, and I will enable overrides, and I will change that one to that kind of reddish, pinkish, maroonish, weird looking color. And that is perfect for me to be able to see. So you guys can really kind of create your own, you know, color coding system and just kind of stick with it. Okay. So this is pretty good for us. And what I'm going to do here is that this thing could move around, and I don't want that. It could also move into Z depth, which I don't want. So we're going to put the limitations on this guy. The limitations are very easy to put. I'll just go up to this section where it's called limit information. Again, we're still on the first controller tab here for the NURBS curve. And I'll drop this down so you see the limit information. Rotations, I can limit, but instead of limiting rotations and scale, I know I'm not going to need those at the moment. So what I would do instead is just select this and say, okay, well, instead of limiting the information, I'm not going to rotate these or scale these. And the visibility, I'm not really too worried about either. So I'll select all these in the channel box, just simply right click and go down to lock and hide selected. Save me a few clicks. I know that this thing's going to go up and down only. So I'll click on the X, translate X, sorry, and translate Z, and I don't need those. So I'll right click, go down to lock and hide selected. Now translate Y is the only thing I could do, so you'll see I can't go left and right. And if my Z axis was here, it wouldn't let me do it, but I can go up and down. Okay. So I'm going to limit this to stay within the slider that I've created. So right there and right down there. So for that, I will go back to the attribute editor, and under the limits, I'll hide the rotation and I'll drop down the translation. And the cool thing about the translation is that since these are units, that's 1 unit up and 1 unit down, I can just click these. So this is the maximum that it can go. This is the minimum that it can go. This is the set for the current. Now these ones I guess I don't really need to turn on because they are not active. Okay, you'll see that those are locked. So you'll look for the color coding systems inside of Maya and see what is locked based off of the color coding here. So this one's not locked for translate Y, not locked for translate Y, locked for translate X and Z. Okay, so I'll test this. So those are my old units. So I got to go to partial of a unit, and I'm not sure what that is. So I should have stuck with my regular units. And let's see if I have. And just to show you, if I were to reset this, display grid option box, I subdivided it by 50. So if I reset this, one unit up is up here. So see, I can't go higher than that. I can't go lower than one unit down. So I'm going to have to eyeball this to set my limitations. I could leave it like this for the moment. It's not really a big deal. If that's really hurting your eyes or something like that, just type in the 50, apply it. We're not too worried. And I'll just kind of eyeball it. I'm not really too worried about the highs and the lows, but you can get really close if you want. Obnoxiously close, like this extreme close-up. And that's pretty close, but let's see what the number in there is. 0.1. Who would have thought? It's perfect. Love it. So let's go back to attribute editor, and I'm just going to type that in. So my max, I'll just stick with 0.1, and my minimum is going to be negative 0.1. That is right. Let's test it. Can't go higher than that, can't go lower. Perfect. And then 0 is going to be in the middle, so at any time I could just type in 0, and that's my set. So this is pretty good. Pretty good. Now let's connect these to our joints. Well, the other part first, I guess, that we could finish this part off, is that I'll select the entire UI, and I'm going to parent it to the head joint. Okay, so either in here, your outliner, or in your view, maybe it makes more sense to do it from the view here, I can click on the head joint. So the head joint is going to be some hand stuff. Head, right there. So I can hold down Control and click on the head in here, or you'll see that the head is this main joint that's going to be in control of the entire head. Okay, so we have that going on, which is pretty nice. Pop back into this view. So child, shift select the parent, or Control click on the parent inside of the outliner and hit P. You could also do a constraint if you want, because this is fantastic, right? Let's try it again. But we'll do it in our view just to see if we get a different result. So I was getting that same error that I was getting earlier, which I do not like. Yeah, so, you know, just instead of even wasting my time with that, I will do constraint. So I can select the head joint, shift select, oh no. Okay, sorry, I thought something messed up there. Shift select this guy, because you select the parent, then the child for constraint, and I'll go to constrain, down to parent, and parent, you can go to the option box just to make sure, but it's the only one that has maintain offset on by default. And maintain offset is again going to be the spatial relationship between this box and this. Okay, so I'll hit add, and could not add constraint or connections. Right on. Oh, probably because I locked and hid my information here. So I may need to try this real quick. Let's try this workaround here. All these fun things. I'll select this one and I'll group it to itself. Control G. Frame controller. Don't know why I keep getting this weird error, but I will do this, and let's see. faceUI group. I'll just change the name. Good. So it didn't like my naming convention or something. But I'll select the face group, and I will center the pivot point. I could really snap it to the neck, or to the head, I mean, the base of the head if I wanted to. But I'll select, see, the group node that I just created, and I'll hold down Shift and click on the head joint, and I'll just parent it. Hit the P key. No errors down here, so Maya accepted that. That's pretty good. And the nice thing is that if I'm in here, I'll just close that. I take this. I have this going along. Okay. Now my lips are staying in place, so that's the only thing I have to fix. So, you know, I hate when that happens in real life. So the only thing I'd have to do is take those joints, and I don't really want to parent them to here. I could really parent them to the head joint, but I could group them as well, and then I can do a constraint, and it leaves it kind of clean and open. All right. Really, if you want to parent it, you totally can. There's nothing wrong with that, and your translations and rotations will work just fine. So you can try different ways of working with this. Just to show you, I will take these, and they should all be at the bottom here because I created those last. I'll take all of those, and I can group them. Control G, or edit group, right? And I'll call that group lip joints, capital G, and then RP. You could just type out group if you like. There we go. And I'll just center the pivot. And with that group node, and I know it's selected because it's showing up here, lip joints group, I'll shift select the head, and then I can just parent, well, I could parent the group here, so I really could do that, but it's going to parent all these as well. So what I'll do, just to make sure, I'll select that, shift select that. Let me try the parenting. I'll hit P. Yeah, that's what I thought I was going to do. So I'll undo that, and what I'll do is just a constraint. So I'll select the head. I'll come down here and look for my group, which is right there. I'll hit Control, click on this, right? So the head is going to be the parent. The lip joint group is going to be the child, which takes all the lips. And I'll just go up to Constrain, down to Parent Constraint. So I have a nice clean scene. I don't have all those connections right there, but it should now move. There we go, with the head. So I didn't paint my weights perfectly. Obviously, you see that in the neck, but that could be another deal that I can go back to at any time, really. It's going pretty good. Looks like my upper teeth need to be parented to my head as well. So not a big deal if I want to get them in here. I can actually go inside the geometry. Wow. There we go. I'll hit 4 and F to frame it. Those look like the upper teeth to me. So I'll shift select the head and I'll parent it. Hit the P key. Now let's do that head movement one more time. All right. Something's pulling those bottom lips. Look. That's great. It might be my parent constraint. So I may need to do a regular parent to that and just kind of deal with that. Because I don't want to work around that right now, I'll just take the lip joint group, take that parent constraint, delete it, and I will just take the lip joint group and shift click on the head joint and do a simple parent, the P key. I'll just make peace with that nastiness there. And I'll just do this. Yeah, and now I'm not getting that weird update. Okay. I'm alright with that. We can deal with that. It's just fine. Anyhow, let's get to the last part of this, which is going to be creating set-driven keys for this thing. Okay. So I'll select the square, which is going to slide up and down. Select part of, or one of the attributes here inside of the channel box, I'll go to Edit, and I'm going to create set driven keys. So set driven key. I'm going to load the driver, so this thing is going to drive the joints. So the smile frown controller, its translate Y is going to drive the joints of the mouth. Okay. And I'll do this from a few different views. I'm going to go up to display down to grid, hide that grid because it's getting to be kind of a funky deal. Alright. So that's pretty good right there. And I will take my joints, which are still here. Oops. They're parented to the head joint. So I'll just go up here and drop. Where's my, there we go, lip joints group. Drop that down, select them right there, and load the driven, right? Select all of the driven, and really I just need their translations and rotations to be connected to this slider. Okay. Let's get this into frame. There we go. Perfect. So now, between the smile and the frown, we can key this, and it's going to be at that position. So when this thing is at that position, these lips are in what we consider the resting position for at least this character. So key. Alright. And this is not my character. I didn't create this. I got this from online just to teach this. But I keyed this at that position in the slider. So I will select this for the next position. Move this up for the smile, which he pretty much already has a frown, so we're going to have to over exaggerate this, and I'm not really going to do a good job because this is just a lesson. Beautiful, right? So we got a partial smile, and we do need to go from the front and side view, or something that's going to allow us, because we don't just smile up, it stretches back this way, right? So we can actually take it and stretch it back. Alright. If you like, you can move this over here, and then you can have your different views showing. So your side view and your front view. And it allows you to focus on those. Alright. You could also take this and you can rotate these to kind of get that, you know, a little bit more. And you obviously I have to paint my weights there a little bit better, blend them in a little bit. That's easy. I can go back and do that at any time. So I could have the option to rotate them. Really over exaggerate this. And the next joints, right? Have those go up maybe. And back. And you'll see that I have to paint my weights here as well. It's kind of a funky deal. Not a huge deal, but at the same time, something that I'd have to deal with, okay? I'm okay with this creepy, sinister style, though. It's, it's kind of working for us. Wow. And if you don't want the rotations, that's okay. This is just an example with some over-exaggeration and some painted weights that are a little bit funky. There we go. Okay, so let's say that that's good, right? What I'll do is I will just make sure one more time that I did slide this up, and I'll hit key. So now I can test this thing. Just up and down. Oh, look, I didn't notice that. So let me undo this. Nope, I'm gonna have to redo it. I didn't notice that I hit the space bar in here earlier, and I didn't pay attention to that. So the only thing that happened here was my my rotate Z, which I didn't even rotate. So I'd have to go move these lips again. So let's be real quick. Let's bring back the creep factor. Right? Get kind of crazy with it this time. And you can use your different views to kind of get that going. And let's just say that we're happy with that. I will key it there. Now I should have, there we go. Now if you need more in-betweens for the slider, you can just make the slider longer, and you would have a value, a higher value to go to in between for your keying. Alright. So there we go. There's a smile. If we did the frown, it's just the same thing. It's now I just go to the frown, slide this down to frown. And when the slider's in that position, basically all I'm saying is that I want this character to frown. I guess even more. Let's exaggerate the frown quite a bit. Alright. Look at this. Oh man, that's a good frown. Well, alright. Okay. Make sure that that's in position. All of these are selected. I didn't accidentally hit spacebar again. You don't ever have to reselect these, so I'll just key it and I'll test it. Okay, and that is pretty golden. So I'll type in 0 here. The functionality is working. And now the cool thing is the way that we did it. We can take this, and if he's looking up, this also moves, so you can get into position, select this thing. And the only thing that you might have to pay attention to when you're rotating the head is the fact that if I hit W right now, this is set good, but it might be set to world. Let me show you. I'll double click on my tool for my move tool, and this is set to object, but by default it might be set to world. You'll see that I can't slide that up and down very easily, although I did lock the other positions, so I could still slide it up and down that way. But if it makes more sense to you to work instead of world but set to object, you'll see that the Y is up for the object because the object did tilt, and the world up is Y like this, going up and down this way. But the object did tilt back, and the Y up for the object itself is going like this. Okay? So this tutorial is entirely too long at the moment, so I'm going to wrap it up here. But the cool thing is now we have something. If I do show and I hide my joints, I could hide all this other stuff too, but you guys get the idea. I will just take this and say, okay, boom. Now I'll just go back and put these in positions if I'm happy with the smile and the frown, which are kind of, they're still funky, so I'd go adjust them. But I would make those and then go paint the weights again, so it's not too crazy. That's awesome. He found his prey. Now it's time to get him. Oh yeah. Very good. So hopefully you guys like this tutorial. I am sorry that it's like at 43 minutes at the moment, but if you have any questions, let me know. Happy